On this episode of Front End Fire, linting is going to be getting a whole lot faster with Oxlint. Your browser is going to be a part of your wellness routine. Maybe we'll break down whatever that means. And Copilot is getting more agentic features. It's Front End Fire. Let's do it. Hey everybody, welcome to Front End Fire, the weekly show that helps you stay up to date on the latest and the greatest in the front end world. I am your host today, TJ Van Tol. I have Paige Niedringhaus with me.
Hey everybody.
As well as Jack Harrington.
Hello there.
And we've got some more stuff going on. It's kind of an interesting week in news, so why don't we dive in?
Let's do it.
Woo!
All right, Paige, you want to kick us off this week? We have some linting updates, I think.
Yes. So Void Zero has really been on a roll the last couple of weeks. They just released a thing called Roll Down Beat, which is their spiritual successor to Beat, which is even faster performance and production
16
builds.
16 times faster.
16 times, I know.
What?
And now they have released Oxlint 1.0. So Oxlint is a linting platform or linting tool, also built in Rust because everything is Rust. And the first stable version is out now. So if you need a linter for your JavaScript and your TypeScript and you use ESLint right now, Oxlint wants to be that replacement for you. So let me give you some stats because we need performance reviews.
Always.
We need to know how fast it is.
Yep.
All right. So the first one that they have is a 50 to 100 time performance improvement over ESLint, which it can get slow depending on the size of the file that you're looking at. Can be a little bit slow. They support over 500 of the ESLint rules. Didn't know it had that many, to be honest.
Well, it's got thousands, and there are people who really get into it. But okay, yeah.
And it runs approximately 10,000 files per second. This is what they've said on X and on Blue Sky.
Okay.
It's a lot of files.
That's fast.
That is a lot of files.
Okay.
So they're already being used by some big companies. So Shopify, Airbnb, and Mercedes-Benz are already using Oxlint. They have first-class support in IDEs for VS Code, IntelliJ, and Zed. So you can just install, a marketplace extension.
It also means cursor and windsurf, so yeah, too. Okay.
Exactly. So Cursor and Windsurf come along for the ride. And then their roadmap for the future is that you'll be able to add your own custom rules, kind of like you can with ESLint now. Even more performance optimization, which I don't know if we need it to be faster than 10,000 files per second, honestly.
On your GPU. Oh my gosh, okay.
And they mentioned something called fine-grained configuration. In parentheses, they say per glob. Now, I don't know what that means, but I guess that is important to somebody out there who's maybe either writing ESLint rules or just knows more about the hardware than I do, but they think it's an important thing that people should be aware of.
I think I have a clue about that, though. I mean, if you want to have, different packages, different parts of your repo that have, different linting rules on them, I can see that.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So... Good on Void Zero. Keep churning out results. This is great.
Yeah, there's so many folks out there that do, I had one guy actually in my comments on one of my videos once, I just can't, I like what you do, but I can't take your code at all seriously. I'm like, okay, kind of, okay, all right. It's like, all right, back to the guy, wait, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh, you just don't, you don't even use lint in your stuff. I'm like, well, it's demo code for a video, so no, whatever. And he's like, I have a lint setup that has 1,400 rules. And I'm like, oh, that's got to be nuts. I mean, that can't happen. And then you get into it. It'll shoot you down this weird, murky rabbit hole of people who, there are folks who do the 1,000+ lint rule club. And it's a whole weird genre out there.
Some of the worst conversations to be a part of are when you get into a big company and you get into arguments about whether a rule should be turned on or off. Oh. And they are sometimes legitimate conversations, but oftentimes they just get into people arguing over personal preferences for no meaningful value, and you got to try to find a way to ride that. I've typically just I have my own personal preferences, but I just go with one of the big presets, and that's good enough for me. Great.
Yeah.
Just that's fine. And if this lets me use those presets, which it probably will, because if it's got 1,000 rules, it's probably got the most popular ones. If I can just use that and my builds get 5,000 times faster or whatever this is promising, when I'll try it. And is this stable now? Because this is 1.0. I have to imagine this is actually ready to try out.
It is their first stable version, so they really would love you to try it out.
So maybe I will have to try this, because we've got some big repos that use ESLint, and that repo takes some time to build, and I don't know, maybe shave off some seconds, minutes, that'll add up.
Yeah.
ESLint is actually pretty dog slow.
It
actually takes up a significant portion of my builds. So I'm happy to see this for sure.
Yeah, this might be one I actually try out, especially if it holds up to what it says. It sounds like it's pretty much just sort of drop in and try out, and things should be faster. And I mean, if that's the case, I don't see much of a reason not to, honestly.
Yeah. Pages 2 for 2. I'm going to try roll down and Oxlint for sure.
Just put it all in there.
Just put it all in there. It'll be fine.
Your builds will be done. You'll be blinking and your builds will be done. It's just...
When I was at a big company, that was not a good thing. You always want, your unit test to be
3-hour build pipe.
Right, exactly. It's like, okay, I got to go for coffee.
Yeah, I better go get some lunch, because
what are you doing, man? Oh,
builds there. Yeah,
waiting on a build.
Waiting on a build. Exactly.
Awesome. It's exciting. We'll have to try it out, and if you've tried it out, let us know in the YouTube comments as well, or on our Discord, because we'd be curious to hear back. All right, Jack, I hear we have some Opera news of all things. I did not see that coming.
It's not the browser that we often talk about. Opera was kind of the low end browser, I would say, and now they've got a new browser called Air. And it is another Chromium browser, so it is not on their Opera internal engine. It's a Chromium wrapper, much like Dia, which we talked about last week, and so it's got some Dia-like features actually. It's got an AI panel on there called Aria that you can pop open. The integration with the browser was not as good as the Dia version. Like it didn't even seem to really understand that it was in a browser. It's more like just kind of here's ChatGPT kind of like in there, enjoy. But it does have things like profiles and stuff like that. But then the thing that kind of stuck out to me is like, do we really want this in a browser? Was that it actually has like wellness features. Like you click on one and it gives you like workout breaks, and it'll like walk you through like stretching and meditation. And then another panel that they've got is essentially like a sonic selection of all of these different frequency tones, kind of like think like brown noise and stuff, but much cooler than that. And they're trying to like get you into like a meditative like flow state and stuff. And it was like, what is this doing in a browser? But I mean, that's kind of the whole shtick of Air, is like when you like select a background when you first start up, you're kind of getting it from all these like kind of like a rainforest kind of thing or something. It's very moody. So just a very interesting take on browser. And I'm kind of curious if you guys are like, what the heck is this doing in a browser or what?
Well, looking at their website, so their tagline, so I just brought up their website, Opera Air, introducing the world's first browser with mindfulness at its core. And
sounds like Dia, except like replace AI with mindfulness.
Do I go to a browser for that?
I don't know. Not the first place that I would go.
I mean, we spend a lot of time in web browsers, so I mean, maybe, but I don't know. It's fascinating, I guess. So I mean, I have fond memories of Opera back when I mean, if you know, back in the day, they had their own rendering engine. They had Presto built in. They were a first-class rendering engine. A lot of people really liked it, including I used Opera for quite a while. I think they were a pretty good browser. And then over time, they couldn't keep up for the same reason like a lot of people got out of the browser game. And so they just started building wrappers around Chromium like a lot of other people are doing. And Opera is still around. Like, I know you can still use it. So maybe their idea is they're just shooting off all these like little forks, especially if it's just a thin layer around Chromium. I mean, maybe they're just firing off some different browser ideas to see if they can find like niche audiences for them. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like the Arc browser. It'll find its niche with some people who really like the kind of hippie, wellness-focused browser, but I don't know. Seems like a weird move, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't know what demographic they're kind of hunting for, but, maybe. It's like,
maybe.
Go to the yoga studio and
get
Opera Air, right? Whatever.
All right, well, we got like new browsers every week. That seems to be our
that's the new thing,
which is pretty fun.
Well, you got to replace Arc some way,
Right. It's like, JavaScript frameworks, REST tools.
New Visual Studio Code fork, new Chromium fork. That's like it's like the format of the show at this point.
Just no more JavaScript engines, guys. Please, we're good.
All right, so my news for this week is about Copilot. So GitHub Copilot is something we've covered, I'd say extensively on the show. It seems to be in the news a lot. We interviewed some members of the GitHub Copilot team a few weeks ago as well. It's basically Microsoft's just coding assistant agent that is built into Visual Studio Code, but they also have kind of an online version of it, a subscription version of it that's built into github.com as well. And that is where the news that is out this week comes from or is related to, because you can now use GitHub Copilot as basically a developer, more or less. So this is their push into the sort of Claude space, the Codex space, the Claude Code space, where you're kind of given this, or like Cursor's background agents is similar to this as well. Because essentially, if you have a GitHub issue and you have a GitHub Copilot subscription, Copilot will appear as a developer that you can assign to issues. And then once you assign Copilot to issues, it will, in the background, and they say in its own secure cloud-based development environment powered by GitHub Actions, Copilot is going to explore the repository, make changes, validate the work against your tests in your linter, and then it'll push those changes to, it'll create a branch to try to fix the issue. And it'll do all of this asynchronously or agentically, if you want to, sound fancy. And I don't know, it's nothing new because there's a lot of services trying to do this. I do think it's interesting that it's built directly into the GitHub user interface, because I think that's kind of a slick advantage that they have because there are so many people that use github.com. And I don't know, it's not a huge thing, but I think it's a kind of big deal, or it's kind of a cool thing. And it is available for Copilot Pro and Copilot Enterprise subscribers. So if you have one of those licenses or your work does, you might want to try it out, see what you think.
Yeah, I think that this is a huge advantage that GitHub has just by knowing that most everybody keeps their code there already. And people do use a lot of the big projects. They have lots of issues. They have lots of pull requests being opened. They have, they use all those features. So the fact that GitHub can just slide their agent in and it has all this context and access to all this stuff already, I think they're going to get a lot of use out of this, honestly. And hopefully, help some of those big projects keep moving forward, maybe at a faster clip too, because they've got this little programmer who can go in and handle that stuff for them.
That's one thing that made, for example, Codex, when I tried it out. So Codex is OpenAI's sort of equivalent of this. And it made it a little bit awkward because it was working with GitHub, but it wasn't GitHub itself. So there's always that extra step of like, you had to auth with GitHub, then you had to load your stuff from GitHub, and then you had to push from GitHub and you had to pull it back in. and it was acting as this middleman, whereas Microsoft is far better positioned to do this since they are GitHub and they could just do everything directly in there. Now, this is, again, another one of these things that it was just recently announced. So how well it works, I'm not sure. I've talked before on the show. I'm still, at least at the moment, skeptical of what these agents are actually able to do. But it's kind of an interesting work. I could see myself using this more because it's on GitHub directly, because I could see an issue comes in and I could be like, well, let's just throw Copilot on it. Why not? Right? Because if worst case, it's going to come up with something that's I'm just going to throw away, but I'm not out much. And maybe it does something that acts as a starting point that I can go in and then clean up. I think it lends itself well to a lot of people's workflow, and we'll see how it actually plays out. But it's a cool, interesting feature.
Yeah, it would be cool to hear in the next few months what kind of usage statistics it's getting and what people's experiences with it have been, if it's as good as it could be or they think it might be.
It is interesting to hear this coming from two people who like had experience with the whole Devon thing. You know,
Yeah.
And you don't
Devon was
burned
disappointing.
forever by that. Like, still wanna get
just
that
didn't use
junior engineer
Devon.
there.
That's what happened, is I just got tired of using Devon, so I quit.
Well,
Devon was just compelling enough that you're like, I want to keep tabs on this sort of world. And that's why I think I like this so much, is because it's so lightweight, because I can just go in. If I have an issue come in, I could just add Copilot and just keep tabs on how well the tech is doing, just by what is it going to take me like a minute or two to check out what the bot came up with and see what it did.
Yeah.
So it's pretty low, and at least for us at work, we're paying for this anyways. So
right. Might as well.
There's almost no reason not to just try it and see what it does. And I will probably be disappointed, but we'll see.
If it's UI tasks, it's gonna do great. Let's be serious. Like, that's the one area where it does really, really well. Where if anything else is kind of like the weirder and like more obscure. Like, you guys are working in like hardware space. It doesn't know anything about that.
No, but I mean, even in the UI space, I mean, I think a lot of people listening to this can relate to this, but I'm very picky about what it does with my UI code.
Yeah, for sure.
So but I guess if it takes a stab at it and it's mostly there, it's faster for me to go in and clean up what it did than if I were starting from a completely blank slate. So we'll see. That was when Devon was at its best. When Devon could get something working and you'd be like, oh, that's interesting, but I need to touch this up a little bit. Yeah. I would still get done faster than if Devon weren't there. So if we can replicate that sort of workflow, then this will be a useful tool to have.
Yeah. The agents, the coding agents, seem to really excel at boilerplate stuff. Like if you're doing API routes on the back end or something, and you're just like, I need CRUD operations, I need you to store this in a MongoDB, they can get through that.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Really fast. But yeah, once you start getting more complex and you're like, okay, I need you to handle these edge cases. And what if I want to update this thing? I have to also update that other thing. That's where it starts to need human interaction again.
We will see. We're keeping tabs on all these coding agents, sometimes whether we like it or not, because it's somewhat the future. So, but that is the GitHub Copilot update, and I think that moves us into our lightning round, because we got one lightning topic to discuss. All right, who wants to cover the latest remix saga that's going on here?
Well, I can. All right, I'll start us off. So whenever you're saying, no, I was not high when I wrote this, like, you're probably in a weird space. And that was from Michael Jackson, the half the invention team behind Remix V3. And let's see. So MJ, what he was supposedly not high writing was, and I'm just going to do this verbatim, Remix 3 will be the spiritual successor to the web itself, a seamless integration with the browser from front to back, a true full-stack experience that includes everything from the data layer through to the component system and the UI. Yeah, okay. I don't know.
Sure. I just love how we could almost make Remix a weekly saga or weekly segment on this show, because we get some, they're good for some random quote or news item every
Some
week at this
clippable
point.
detail.
But yeah, it's we'll see, I guess. Cool, but
I mean, that whole tweet is just nonsense. But I feel like they're going to build this up with so much hype that when Remix V3 actually comes out, everybody's going to be let down just because it has been heralded as the next coming and like the new web. And it's going to be another JavaScript framework. I'm sure there will be some nice stuff that people really like about it, but it is still going to be a JavaScript framework.
Yeah, render some HTML, does some routing.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually got on my channel a comment this morning, and it's such a brutal takedown of this. So this is not me. This is one of my YouTube commenters, but I thought it was actually pretty compelling. As a very early adopter of Remix, my 2 cents would just stay off the library and everything in the proximity. In the beginning, it was all about loaders and actions, but they decided to kill Remix and tell us to move over to React Router with no clear migration path. Now they're telling us that Remix is back, but it's not really Remix anymore. Just move to Astro to BH. I was like, oh, I think he kind of nailed it there. And then, to be honest, what they're talking about, it sounds a lot like an Astro or an HTMX or something like that. I just, okay.
I'm always for, I mean, we'll see though, because I was very skeptical of Dia, and then I tried it, and I'm still a little bit skeptical, but at least I can see somewhere what they're going. It's always hard when you have any sort of tech person that talks in very extremely aspirational, for like aggrandized forms like this, that it's hard not to roll your eyes. But we'll see.
That's Silicon Valley, though. It's all about the storytelling.
Yeah.
But I don't see the story. It's not a particularly fun story. It's a story of like, I don't know, vengeance or something. Like, where's my uplifting
story of vengeance?
It's how you raise the money.
We were wronged by the React team. Now we're back doing our own thing.
But we're doing Preact, which is just a fork of React.
What? I don't even know.
Speaking of money, Shopify spent money on Remix. I don't know where they are as part of this whole equation, or if that's all out the window. I don't know.
I wonder, was it 4 years ago?
Was it that long ago?
I think we decided 2020. Okay, hold on.
Let's Google it.
4 is the magic number, because when they get bought by a company. Yeah.
Okay,
October
so 3.
2022.
It's coming up on 4 years, though. That's the thing, right? So they're basically like, they're eyeing.
It's coming up on 3 years, Jack. 2022.
2022. We're in the 3 years, right? I'm saying like 2026 would be when 2022 plus 4.
Well, I mean, sure. It's
whatever.
We're like 16 months away, so that's a little ways away.
They're bored. I don't know. It's like, but that's the thing. When founders get bought out, they have to stay in the company and it's usually 4 years.
Yeah.
And then maybe they got a 3-year deal.
They might have had a 3-year deal.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, we're good. We got our money. Peace out. Enjoy.
We got to drum up more investment money for our new Remix inspiration.
For the spiritual successor to the web.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Spiritual successor to the web. I love that line.
Methinks they could self-fund for a little while, given probably the copious amount of money they got from Shopify. Probably.
All right. They're keeping us happy, though, because it's
very
amusing to watch. And so why don't we discuss other things that are making us happy?
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Jack, what's making you happy this week?
Well, I was sick recently and still am. But when you're sick, you want to do something. And so I ended up watching a bunch of TV and found that kind of boring. So I finally decided I was going to pick a game off of somewhere and just try it out. And I had listened to a podcast just recently where they went over some games that I really liked on Switch, and with the upcoming Switch 2 release. And the one that they recommended was Spiritfarer. And I gotta say, I really am enjoying this game. If you are it is non-competitive. It is not like a first-person shooter or anything. It's a 2D side scroller where you are trying to ferry the spirits of the dead to this, an Everdoor. But in the meantime, you're building this big boat, and you're kind of getting all these stories and stuff, and it's very cute. The art is beautiful, and if you're into something like a Stardew Valley or something like that, it is very, very similar. In fact, actually, just last night, my wife and I were watching. She was like, I don't want to watch TV tonight, so I'm like, okay, cool. Why don't you just play your game, and I'll just play my game. And so she was playing Stardew Valley, and she's fishing in Stardew Valley, and I'm fishing over in Starfarer, and it's like, okay, there you go. So, but
What more do you need?
What more do you need?
Yeah.
Really, life is complete.
You're together.
Excellent.
Yeah, it sounds
I like
interesting. I like little peaceful games like that, especially if you're in the right mood for it. Those can be very calming.
Mm-hmm. What's the one that was super popular with the little animals? I can't remember the name of it right now.
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing. Yeah, it sounds a little bit like that, but that was 3D. This is 2D.
Yeah, and the Animal Crossing thing. Well, this one actually has local co-op, but Animal Crossing also had that thing like during the COVID time where you could actually go to people's farms, and then there's a whole thing about stars like giving away their farm codes and things. Or islands. No, they're islands. You got to go visit my island for a good price on turnips. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paige, what is making you happy this week?
An Instagram account that one of my coworkers shared to our Slack channel earlier this week is making me happy, and it's called A Look Back in History. And it is somebody using AI, Google's VO3, which is their newest video generating AI that does everything from people to voices to scripts, like the whole 9 yards. And they're doing POVs of if famous people had iPhones back in the time that they were alive. So there's one of like if George Washington had an iPhone, or if Moses had an iPhone, or if Batman and Robin had an iPhone, or Disney Princesses is one that recently came out. And these are amazing. Like, they're short, but they are hilarious. Because they're using like slang from today's world in it. The voices are really good. Sometimes it'll go from like an American accent to an English accent and back again, like depending on which scene of the video you're watching, which is hilarious. And it's really impressive what this channel has managed to do in just a week's time. Like, it has like 700,000 followers on Instagram, and it's been around for probably a week or two tops.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't realize these were videos. I saw a link to this before, but I thought they were just pictures. So I'm going to have to watch a few of these.
Yeah, they're AI generated videos, and they are pretty amazing.
See, AI is good for something.
Yeah. I mean, this is just totally entertainment, but wow, it's really impressive that they've been able to do this.
Yeah.
When it comes to AI being good for stuff, it's like I saw just recently like a package sorting bot, and it was like sorting like one every 30 seconds, and you're like, oh my God, okay. So they can't do manual labor, but it can go and like do art and go and do coding and do those skills. So why not take those jobs, and we'll all just be in the warehouse sorting packages, because we can do it faster than a bot can.
I'll tell you what, I had an AI success story this weekend because we had an issue with our washing machine, and I do not know how to fix washing machines. But what I found is I busted out the ChatGPT app and was just starting to take pictures, because I was like, it's giving me this error, and it would tell me things. And then I would be like, okay, it's like, well, it's like, check your valves. I'm like, what valves? So I'd take a picture of it and send it in, and it would be like, okay, well, that's where your drain is going through. These two knobs, or this is for the high. I'm like actually learning things about my home as I'm doing this, which is pretty compelling. I don't know. I
get that for sure. Yeah, that's great.
So I don't know. There's some good things going on with AI, at least.
When I got stuck in Spiritfarer, and I asked it, I just Claude, hey, by the way, I'm playing this weird random game. How do I get from this one situation to this other situation? It knew it without making Google searches. It didn't need a search.
Yeah.
It had been trained on Spiritfarer. So I was like, are you kidding me right now?
Amazing.
But, who needs the little walkthrough guides anymore? You got,
Oh,
AI.
Oh,
I
man.
remember asking on third grade playground, like, is if anybody else played this game, because that was all the resources you had.
Yeah,
We've come
I
a long
remember
ways.
getting the game guides from the game store or calling the Pokemon hotline to talk to some Pokemon expert when I was stuck. Yeah, and that was like the pay number. And my parents were
Right?
like, "You need to make this quick. We're not paying for
Yeah,
minutes of you
right.
to just talk to somebody."
Uh, well, what is making me happy this week is Drive to Survive. I finally bit the bullet and watched this show. So I've been a Formula One fan for a very long time, pretty kind of casual fan for a greater part of 2 decades. I've been to a few races. I had never seen the show. I'm probably in this weird spot in the Venn diagram of people that have followed the sport but never saw the Netflix show. And so I finally sat down to watch a few episodes yesterday, and I can report back that it is indeed quite good and quite compelling and extremely well produced, interesting to watch. I don't know. It was good. I kind of had a feeling it was, and I knew I was going to get sucked in, so I was waiting a little bit, and it was very entertaining. So if anybody else is out there that has not taken the plunge yet, you definitely don't have to be a racing fan. It's just extremely well produced television more than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more fun to watch the races because there's so much going on behind the scenes that you never get to see during the actual race.
And you get to see all those personalities, some great personalities in F1.
Yeah.
Are you guys excited about the new F1 movie coming out?
Yeah.
No.
No. I love
don't
it.
know.
Paige is like, yeah. She's like,
I'm skeptical. I don't know.
Reserving judgment.
I don't know if I can picture Brad Pitt as a.
really?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm waiting to see what the reviews are. Apparently, they showed it to some people at WWDC. So there are some people that got some early looks at it. I've not heard back whether it's any good or not, but I'm going to reserve judgment until I see some reviews coming in.
That's fair.
It's funny, like the movie show that I watch, they're all about like, oh, that is the dad movie of the summer. Like, that's the one that's going to bring
Yeah, I
out,
think so.
your 30 to 50s, Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
That's
the
the
reason I'm
Oppenheimer
excited
of this summer.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got Brad Pitt. Come on,
We'll see. How old is Brad Pitt? Like,
Dude, I think he's like 62, but like they do all that stuff or something.
well, yeah. I mean, that's what makes it so hard to like. That's the biggest thing I thought when I was watching Drive to Survive.
He's
when I was watching-
61.
Oh, I almost nailed
Okay.
it. Look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty
62.
close.
Dang, it's close.
But when I was watching Drive to Survive, it really brings home of like these drivers are children, at least to me. Like, there's so many of them that are like
They can't even
19
drink
years old.
yet. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they're tiny.
And exactly,
they're
like
so
these
little.
like tiny young guys that are racing in these cars, and I think that's what makes it a little bit less believable for me for Brad Pitt to be out there. But I don't know, if the movie's good, I'll see it.
There's no way he's ever. I mean, maybe he was in a cockpit, like, or something. I don't know, but there's no way he drove one of those things because the G-forces would rip him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He probably did on
Blood
some green
vapor
screens or some
yeah.
controlled environment.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. But you're right, the age is unbelievable, especially because when you listen to the commentators and they're talking about Fernando Alonso, who is, a multiple world champion driver, has been driving for 20 plus years, is in his early 40s, and they're like, Fernando Alonso is still on the track. They're like, you get the impression that he should be dead at this age. That
Right?
There's
Yeah.
no way he should be out there still racing Formula One, and he is, and he's doing better than his teammate always. But yeah, he is an anomaly apparently by massive standards. So Brad Pitt at 61, yeah, that's
since the safety stuff wasn't as good as it is now. I mean,
yeah.
now like Sonoda went like in a practice session, ripped the car in
Flipped
half,
over.
flipped over,
I know.
walks away. Is like, okay, well that was not great. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, it's amazing that they're surviving these crashes at these speeds.
Incredible. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that is our episode for this week. Thanks again for listening. Episode 101. We're into the triple digits now. Thanks, as always, to our sponsor, the Blue Collar Coder. We have links to all of our resources. You could check out our Discord, our website, all of that stuff, our socials. That's all in the show notes. If you like the show, feel free to give us a good rating on your podcast player of choice, Spotify, Apple, any of those things. Those are always appreciated as well. And I think that is another episode for us. So thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for hanging with us.
See you then.